Want to speak real French from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at FrenchPod101.com.
Hey guys, this is Pierre from France, and welcome back to a new lesson about French. Today's lesson is about faux amis, which is false friends in English. There are many common words in English and French, but sometimes there are some tricky ones that you have to remember. The purpose of this lesson is not to be exhaustive, but to show you the main words that you have to remember. Of course, there are many others, but here are the main ones. Let's start with the adjectives. Here, sensible versus sensible. Sensible means raisonnable or judicieux in French. You have to use those words. But for sensible, it means sensitive or receptive. So be careful. When you say je suis sensible à l'art, je suis sensible à l'art, you have to say I am receptive to art. When you say mes dents sont sensibles, mes dents sont sensibles, you have to say in English my teeth are sensitive. So to translate sensitive, you have to say sensible. And here, if you want to translate a sensible solution, you have to say une solution raisonnable ou judicieuse, which is the feminine form for judicieux. Une solution raisonnable. So try to remember this one. Next, this one is a bit more tricky. Ancient versus ancien. It's almost the same meaning, but sometimes if you try to translate ancient with ancien, it's really awkward in French. So here, you have to say antique for ancient, which means really, really old, like in English. But ancien, it means just old, like an old car, an old house, une vieille maison. So here is a kind of order between all the words that you can use in French to say old. Vieux, ancien, and antique. Vieux is old, and ancien is really old, and antique is super, super old, like an ancient history. So here, c'est une ancienne maison. You can say this is an old house. I forgot the he here. This is an old house. You can also say vieille instead of ancienne. But here, cette antique peau a été créée par les Égyptiens. Cette antique peau a été créée par les Égyptiens. I wrote it like in English here, but here it's like that. Cette antique peau a été créée par les Égyptiens. There is no accent. Cette antique peau a été créée par les Égyptiens. This ancient pot was created by the Egyptians. So here, be careful with antique and ancient. Let's move on to the next one, and this one is a bit complicated. Terrible versus terrible. Ce gâteau n'est pas terrible. It means the exact opposite that in English. This cake is not really good. Ce gâteau n'est pas terrible. This cake is not really good. But here, if you use c'est un terrible accident, it is quite the same meaning than in English. This is a terrible accident, a dreadful accident. Same meaning here. And there is one case that is not common anymore in French. When you say just terrible, just this word, terrible, it means terrific. But this is quite an old way to say it. You don't say it a lot in French. And maybe you will find that in French comics or in old books. So not really common with your friends. Let's move on to another one. Excited versus excité. Excited means enthusiast in French. But although excité can mean sometimes excited nowadays, it means also horny. Like originally, the original meaning is horny. But due to the influence of English, now we also use the same meaning, the same word for the translation of excited. So when you say je suis excité, je suis excité, je suis excité, it means I am horny, but also I am excited. So this can lead to a kind of confusion. So if you want no confusion at all, you have to use the word enthousiaste instead of excited. Il est enthousiaste à propos de son voyage. Il est enthousiaste à propos de son voyage. He is excited about his trip. Il est enthousiaste à propos de son voyage. So here, you can also say, je suis excité à propos de mon voyage. But if you say that, it would be, because of the end of the sentence, everybody will understand. But if there is no context, it is better to use enthousiaste instead of excité, because there is this confusion that can happen. And speaking of confusion, here is another one, preservative, which is an adjective in English, and préservatif, which is not an adjective in French, it's a noun, and it means condom. So please be careful when you want to say, for example, a preservative measure. If you say une mesure préservative, it doesn't make any sense, and you will look a bit ridiculous for French people. Like they would maybe have a smile because they understand this meaning. So if you want to say preservative, please use the adjective conservateur. So here, a preservative measure, you have to say une mesure conservatrice. Conservatrice is the feminine form of conservateur. Conservateur, conservatrice. Une mesure conservatrice. Let's now move on to some other kind of words. Here are some verbs. Adjectives is the main category, but here some little categories. So verbs. When you say attendre in French, it doesn't mean attendre. It means wait. I'm waiting for you. Je t'attends. But if you want to translate attendre, you have to use the word assister à. There is a space between here, between assister and à. Assister à. For example, assister à une conférence. You have to say attend a lecture. Assister à une conférence. So please be careful with that. And here is another difference that personally when I first started to learn English, I had really had a lot of trouble learning this. Passer versus pass. When you pass an exam in English, it means that in French, you have to say réussir un examen. But if you say passer un examen in French, it means that you have an exam. So this is quite difficult, and please remember, so passer un examen, I forgot the R-E. I forgot the R here, but it's a verb. Like here it's like je passe un examen, but you have to say passer un examen with the infinitive form. So passer un examen, to have an exam. And réussir un examen, to pass an exam. So be careful with that. And then here are some adverbs. Adverbs. There is this adverb, which is sometimes a noun in French, personne. Like when it's a noun, it means like in English, a person or people when it's plural. But sometimes it's an adverb in French, and it means the exact opposite, kind of opposite, meaning like it means nobody. Nobody's here. Nobody's here. You have to say il n'y a personne. So be careful, because sometimes you will be confused. But it's quite easy to know when it's a noun or when it's an adjective. If there is une personne, you know that it's a noun because there is une. But here there is nothing. So it means that it's an adjective. And please note that there is always this negation here. Il n'y a personne. Like it's a couple, en and person. So here usually it's ne, but here because of the y, you have to say n, just n. But sometimes when you speak French, you get rid of the n here and you just say il y a personne, il y a personne, il y a personne. So this is a common way to speak with your friends. But the proper way to say it is with the n here. And here is another adverb, actuellement versus actually. When you want to say actuellement in English, you use currently. But when you want to translate actually in French, you have to say en fait or réellement. So here is an example. En fait, c'était une blague. En fait, c'était une blague. Actually, it was a joke. Actually, it was a joke. And here, another example. Mon état d'esprit a réellement changé. Mon état d'esprit a réellement changé. Mon état d'esprit a réellement changé. My mindset has actually changed. So here, réellement, actually. And when you start with actually in a sentence, it's better to use en fait. En fait is a lot used at the beginning of a sentence in French. And in the middle of a sentence, maybe you would prefer to use réellement. So, en fait, c'était une blague. Mon état d'esprit a réellement changé. So now, I'm going to show you some nouns. Let's end this lesson with some nouns. When you say librairie in French, it doesn't mean library, but it means bookshop. And library, it means bibliothèque. When you say journée in French, it's not the same as journey. It means day or daytime. But when you say journey, it means trip, so voyage. Location in English and location. Same writing, but different pronunciation. A location is, in French, position or emplacement. But if you say location in French, it means rental. So be careful with that, especially when you read it. Then you've got this one, you probably know it, money versus monnaie. Money is argent in French, easy word. But when you say monnaie, it has also a meaning in French, but quite different. It can mean currency, for example, euro. L'euro est une monnaie. L'euro est une monnaie. L'euro est une monnaie. It means euro is a currency. But it can also mean change, like give me the change for the money. So here you can say donne-moi la monnaie, give me the change. Donne-moi la monnaie. But in French, you can also say sometimes change. You can translate change with change. Donne-moi le change. Give me the change. And here is a last one, but a bit tricky, but be careful. Interview in French, with the French pronunciation, interview, versus interview. When you say interview in French, it means interview. Quite easy, right? But that's not always the case. The opposite is not true. Interview, when you say it, sometimes it means you have to say entretien. So what's the difference? Interview in French, it's only for journalistic interview. So when you interview someone, like an actor or someone or something like that, you have to use the word interview. But for other kind of interview, you have to use the word entretien. Like when you have an interview for a job, you say entretien. J'ai un entretien d'embauche. I've got an interview. I've got an interview. J'ai un entretien pour un emploi. I've got an interview for a job. J'ai un entretien. J'ai un entretien pour un travail. J'ai un entretien pour un travail. J'ai un entretien pour un travail. So be careful with that. This is, I think, a common confusion, but many French people would understand if you misuse the words, but it's better to know, right? Well, this ends our lesson for today. It was not exhaustive, but here are some examples of faux amis. I hope you really like this video, and if you want more videos, you can like these videos and share with your friends, but also put some comments down below. This is a good support for us. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do it with the button down below as well. And if you want some more French resources and want to learn more French, you can go to the website frenchpod101.com and you will find more contents. This is all for me. I hope you really like it and see you next time on the next lesson for more French.